Hello guys, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, it's probably going to be a bit of a boring one. So just going to sit here. I'm going to talk for a few minutes about the Vaporfly and where that shoe, or not specifically the Vaporfly, but with the carbon shoe, where it came from, the super shoe or the carbon plated shoe. A couple of years ago, it hit the market. Pretty much it came on all of our radars when Kipchoge tried to break the 2 hours the first time round. And I remember looking at that at the time and thinking, didn't really think much about the shoe because he had the runners running in that kind of swallow shape in front of him. He had the pacers dropping off and coming in and out, and he had the gels being handed to him. So it was all very, very much methodical. And he came pretty close the first time round, and didn't really think too much about the shoe. But the shoe he was wearing that day went on to be the shoe that the three Olympians wore in the 2016 Beijing Olympics. Pretty much the podium was littered with people who were wearing, in both the men's and females race, it was people who were wearing the Nike Vaporfly were on the podium. And basically anybody else who wasn't wearing the shoe really didn't have a hope to win either of those races. And then that was where I first came across this term, the shoe that ruined running. And I think for some degree that probably does stand up and probably is pretty much true. There are a couple of arguments that are put forward to me when I talk about this, and I'll try and discuss and think, or put forward the argument as to why those arguments aren't very robust in their thinking. I've recently just bought a pair of Vaporfly. In fact, today was my first time running in them. Yeah, first time running them today, and really enjoyed them. And there's a reason why I've decided to change my mind. I was very much adamant that I was never going to wear them. And the reason why I was adamant that I'd never wear them is that I was certain in the beginning that World Athletics or the IAAF were going to come out and they're going to put some sort of regulation on it and basically say that the shoes aren't allowed. There is precedence for this. A couple of years ago, God, it must be back in the early 2000s, FINA did the same thing with a swimsuit. So there was a swimsuit, I think it was at the Sydney Olympics. It was the long swimsuit. If you remember the videos, they were literally like seals or fully clad swimsuits. The suits were very expensive as well, and they had very little usage. So FINA just basically came out and they rewrote regulations. I was pretty sure that the IAAF or World Athletics were going to do similar. I was sure they were going to say the midsole, the maximum height is going to be, up until then it was like 25 millimeters. I was sure they're going to go in around there, maybe 35 or maybe 30 max, but they came out with 40. And it's interesting how they come up with the 40 millimeters. You could say that was their regulation and Nike absolutely hit the jackpot 3 or 4 days later, or the argument could be put forward that the two are colluding. And if you're standing around waiting for Nike to hit the moral high ground, well then, you're going to be standing for a very long time. Anyway, the shoe came about because of, well, around the early 2000s, Fila tried to do them with a carbon plate. They put a carbon plate in a shoe because they had the theory that you could get more traction and get more buck for your money when you run. But the problem was they didn't have what they call the real estate in the shoe. They couldn't bend the carbon plate, and a flat carbon plate just wasn't doing it with the foam they had as well. The synergy wasn't there between the two. The shoe worked in terms of running economy, but because it didn't bend at the front, it was causing lots of problems around the big toe joint or the metatarsal joint. So that kind of just went by. People were getting injured. It wasn't very comfortable. It was never going to work. And then cut forward a couple of years, Oscar Pistorius is running in the disabled Olympics, and he decided that he wanted to try and run in the able-bodied Olympics for South Africa. And the IAAF tried to ban him because he had the prosthetic legs and he had the curve. If you remember his running shoes, or his legs, his prosthetic legs had the carbon plate at the bottom was bent. And they went and they said, look, you can't do it because it's giving you an unfair advantage. And he took the IAAF to the Court of Arbitration of Sport, and he won. They basically said, look, you can't put this rule you can't put this rule out saying that you can't compete in this race because of an unfair advantage. You just can't stick it in. He won, and then that left this massive chasm open where the IAAF had a part of their regulation was now, there was no rule for it, and it basically just meant it was a free-for-all. Nike obviously got a couple of engineers and biomechanists, and they sat down and they obviously went through and they literally found a way to bend this shoe, or bend this plate, put in with the Pebax foam that they have. and they got to it and they designed it and they came out with a pretty good design. And they sent that to, I think it was the Nike Oregon project. I'm not sure exactly where it was, but Cara Goucher came across the shoe. There was a couple of athletes wearing it, and Cara Goucher, when she saw it and saw the split that these people were doing and the times that they were coming in with, she actually wrote to the IAAF and said, you know, something needs to be done about this, because this is the athletes who were using it were causing it the magic. I think Cara was one of the people who was wearing it, and they were in their little training camp. They were referring to the shoe as the magic because the results they were getting were like totally unbelievable. And of course, the IAAF did what the IAAF did when they get something coming in, when they get somebody telling them something that they need to act on. They literally put the two hands under their legs and they sat in it, and they pretty much have sat in it ever since. So skip forward then, Kipchoge rocks up in Italy to try and do his sub 2 hour attempt. He has the shoes on. Most of us don't really realise how much benefit he's getting from the shoe, because we're all thinking about all the other stuff at play. The car drafting him, the lasers on the road, the people running in the swallow shape position, them handing him the drinks, them handing him the Morton gels. Everything is going perfect, and he almost does it. A year or two after that, we can see, and up until now, pretty much, I'm pretty sure every single road world record has gone now since the shoes came out. The shoes were marketed as being giving you 4% benefit, okay? And this is where the problem comes in, and this is where the first straw argument comes to me. When I talked about how we shouldn't use them, how they shouldn't be allowed, and how it's mechanical doping or cheating, it's no longer cheating because now it's in the rules that you can use them. So I take back my comments about saying it's cheating, because clearly it's not if everybody's doing it, and if it's legal then it's not cheating. But it is mechanical doping. Even if it is legal, it is mechanical doping, and here's why. The shoes give a 4% advantage. And up until that shoe, every shoe before that, all you could ever market it was that it would give a 1% advantage. And there is a general creep. So each shoe kind of, as we progress over the decades, you get a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. But the 1% advantage is statistically irrelevant. And what I mean by that is, when Adidas came out with the Ultra Boost, which is my favorite shoe, when they came out with them, they marketed it as being a 1% advantage by wearing these. So 1% running economy is saved, which is, if it is 1%, that's a noticeable thing. But the problem is you can't ever measure that, and you can't say for certain, because if you took me and 7 other guys like identical to me, same height, same weight, same nutrition, same hydration, same training, and get 5 or 7 of us all identical and get us all to run 10k each day for 7 days in the same shoes, there would be more than a 1% difference. It's just a physiological phenomenon, a biological phenomenon. There will be more than 1%. So you could never say for sure that the shoe was doing that, okay? But when the Nike came out with the 4%, there was now a major step, and there was a major step, and the 4% was going to be, you were able to say, yes, this is a clear advantage. Anybody wearing this shoe is going to have a clear advantage. If you then, at the time, took the 10 best marathon runners in the world, okay, and that their difference in their time wasn't more than 4%. So if you look at all the times before the shoes came out, there's not a 4% fluctuation in the times, the winning times of a marathon. So what that means then is, if you get the 10 guys at the start of a marathon and put 9 of them in Adidas Ultra Boost and 1 of them in a pair of Nike Vaporfly, you can pretty much put your money on, barring trauma or accident, that guy's going to win. And that's where the unfairness came in. When we came to the Rio Olympics, the shoes weren't readily available. Some of the athletes were under contract to wear other shoes, and that basically meant that any athlete who was contracted to wear a different shoe, there was no way they were ever going to win that race. There's no way you could be a world-class athlete, could be 4% better than a world-class Kipchoge. You know, you get a world-class Kipchoge and give him an extra 4%, the race is over before it even starts. And that's where the unfairness came in. So from there, after that then, the IAAF were then kind of put forward or put in the corner to say you need to do some sort of regulation on this, because it was literally getting out of control. It was literally basically saying we can determine the result of a race before it even starts, okay? And that's how it was kind of set up. So what the IAAF did then, World Athletics went and they came out and they said that their regulation was that the midsole was going to have to be no higher than 40 millimeters, okay? So that was 40 millimeters, and hey presto, I think it was 4, maybe 5 days after that, after they came out with that regulation, 4 or 5 days later, Nike came out with the Alpha Fly, which was 39.5 millimeters stack height. See, it's what I was saying earlier. Either Nike hit the jackpot, they were off in their lab designing this shoe, putting all this money and research into getting this shoe and it comes out at 39.5%, and then they know at the time that the IAAF are going to make this regulation change, and it just so happens that the regulation change is a half a millimeter more than what Nike needed. I mean, the IAAF could have said anything. They could have said Koskei, who had won the women's world record just a year and a half earlier, her stack height at the time was 35 or 36 millimeters. They could have said, look, we're going to cap it at Koskei's. We're going to say you're not allowed to have 36. But they didn't. They let it run. They left it open. And they went to 40, and hey presto, Nike hit the jackpot. So we'll give them that, and we'll say that that's what they did. And then from there, we don't know exactly now what the percentage are. So it was 4% when they came out first. Who knows now how much percentage it is. With the 4% advantage, you have to remember that, like anything in life, if you use that bell curve, okay, like anything in life, there are responders and non-responders. So some people at the far end will get really good, will get the whole 4% or 5% or 6% advantage. And then there'll be other people at the other end who don't get any real responsiveness from that shoe. And that's just a general fact of life. And when we follow the classic bell curve, most of us will fall somewhere in the middle of getting maybe either 2, 3 or 4%, but there will be some people who are getting 5 or 6%, and some people getting 1 or 2%. And if you're a person getting 1 or 2% and you're racing a person who's 5 or 6% and you're in around the same physiological fitness, there's no way you're winning that race. That person is taking the race, hands down, doesn't matter. And again, some people come to me and they say, well, you know, this is just a general creep, and if you're using any shoes, well, then that's doping. I mean, look, nobody's gonna put their hands up and say, you know, Kipchoge is not a better marathon runner than the guy who won whatever Olympics, you know, 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago. Of course he is. Of course, over time, we learn from nutrition, from training methods, from new gear, you know, new nutrition studies that teach us how to maximize our human performance. Nobody's going to argue and say that Kipchoge is not better than that than any other guy that went before him. Of course he is. But when we bring the shoe into play, you can't measuring his time with that shoe and comparing it to other runners. It's not even measuring. It's not even comparing apples to oranges. It's comparing apples to footballs. It's just it's a different game now. It's a different scenario. You can dress it up and you can call it what it wants, but the shoe does give you a minimum of a 4% return if you're a responder, and that is going to be enough to make you win a race. And that's where the problem is with the shoe. Anyway, we now know there's no way that the tube paces out with the tube, and there's no way it's going back in. I'm hoping next year to try and compete in a couple of races. And that's why I've decided to get the shoe now. There are a couple of races, and my club do a Grand Prix style tournament, and I want to try and run in that next year. I came second in it a couple of years ago, and I'd like to try and give it a bash and win it this coming year. And I know for a fact I can't do it if I don't have the shoes. There's just no way I can do it. So that's kind of why I've got the shoes. I'm going to wear them in this upcoming marathon in Dublin. I predict with my training, this is my 21st marathon to run, so I've been around the block more than once, not my first rodeo. I reckon I'm in shape to run probably a 3:22, 3:23 marathon. So any quicker than that, and I'll definitely put it down to the shoe, put my hands up and say the shoes brought me faster than that. If I'm slower than that, I can always blame the shoes and say, oh, they changed my biomechanics, so I have a little out. I'm only joking. Yeah, that's just kind of a brief history of where they came from and where the regulation came from. And yeah, just shine a little light in a dark corner that nobody seems to want to look in. But anyway, I'm one of those people who likes to look in those corners. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Sorry about the long duration dish. I'm sorry about the boredom of me just sitting here talking to the camera. But anyway, I'll be back in 2 days' time with a little review and some footage of me from my first time running in the Vaporflies. Anyway, run far, run fast, but most of all, run sensible.